In this video about the no input mixing board, I want to talk about amplified noise channels, where we take the noise that is present in the mixing board and bring it up to a level that we can use it as part of a broader sound palette on the mixing board. Starting out, I'm going to just turn up a channel, turn up the preamp all the way, and you'll hear absolutely nothing, because this mixing board has noise in it like any piece of electronic equipment, but even at maximum amplification under normal circumstances, we don't hear that noise at all. Now, what we can do is take the output of this channel, run it into a second channel, and if we start listening to this instead, as we turn up our noise, we have some really lovely noise. And now, taking my EQs, I can start to shape that noise in a really lovely way. Listen to this. Here we are emphasizing the mids in the noise. Hear the highs. Here I am cutting the highs out of the noise. And we can start to see some of the broad noise palette that we can work with on the mixing board. The low cut can shape the character of the noise a little bit. But I don't find it to be a setting that I reach for a lot when I'm working with noise channels. One thing I do find is that the noise channel like this does benefit from a larger feedback loop on the mixing board that can emphasize and shape that noise further. And so I like to use the tape inputs and tape outputs for this. I take these, I flip-flop left and right for one side of the input-output loop, and this means that I don't have a big stereo imbalance between my left channel and my right channel distortion for this sort of total mixer distortion, but instead it crisscrosses back and forth. And now this routes the output of the mixing board through the tape inputs, and using the source matrix and the control room phones adjustment here, that gets routed back to the main mix. So let's listen with no distortion. And now I'm going to turn this up. You can get things from a subtle sort of crash of a wave all the way up into a total feedback loop. But I find that it can really emphasize that low end and create some sort of heavy push or shifting with the total input feedback loop. When working with a noise channel like this, we are amplifying things to such a level that we have to be a little bit more considerate about neighbor channels. If I construct a feedback loop on channel 3, one of our standard oscillators, you can hear that on channel 2, which is our noise channel, we can hear some of that channel 3 oscillator even when it's turned all the way down. Sometimes, depending on what your intentions are, this can really get in the way. Other times, it can be really useful, and I find especially if we drive this neighbor channel into the sub-audio pulse range, we hear a little bit of it in our noise. You can hear that, and then when we bring it in, now we can have a really interesting play between the channels. It's just something to keep in mind that we do have bleed from adjacent feedback channels into our noise channel when you're routing things around on the mixing board. Creating a second noise channel here, we can play with two sets of noise that have been shaped to different EQs. Let me turn up a second one here. I'm going to emphasize just the highs on this first channel. Add a little bit of distortion. And with the introduction of a second channel and blending between these two different noise sources, we can create some really layered, lovely, complex noise with the mixing board. I find that these noise sources work really well when we run them into a feedback loop, such as one that we construct using an aux send. So let's hear our noise again. For what I want right now, I'm on a slightly higher tone. So I'm going to create something that's a little more fragile, higher. I'm going to turn down our noise, and now I'm going to route this noise into channel 5 here using the aux 1 sends. You can hear how we can use this noise and introducing it into the feedback loop in order to disrupt and shape that feedback loop into something that screams a little bit. And I think this is a fairly classic noise sound that's really nice to be able to achieve on the no input mixing board. Adjusting things around a little bit in order to create a slightly different setup between the aux send and the noise sources. I'm going to increase the amount of bass to push that aux send note down, and I'm going to increase the amount of highs that we're getting from our noise here. Bring this into the sub-audio range. Listen to that. I love the variety of organic creature-like sounds that we can get by sending some of this noise of different characters into a lower channel as well. I hope that this shows some of the variety of potentials that you can get by combining noise with standard feedback loops in order to further expand the palette of sounds available on the no input mixing board.